Here's a business plan nobody's tried in 2,000 years. You open a burger stand in ancient Rome. Not a metaphor. The Romans had a burger, a real one, minced meat, shaped by hand, cooked on a hot counter and sold to a man on his way somewhere. And they had the storefront to sell it from. The only question left is the one that matters. Do you get rich or do you go broke by the end of the month? Let's find out. You, personally, you're the operator. And I'm going to hand you the real numbers. The ones the Roman state carved into stone, and let you watch your own margins live or die. One honest warning before you sign a lease. Your shop is a stitch-up of 3 different Romes. The counters come from Pompeii, buried by a volcano in 79 AD. The recipe comes from a cookbook tied to Apicius, a 1st century gourmet, though the version we can read was probably written down centuries later. And the prices come from one document, Diocletian's price list of the year 301. So this is a composite Rome, and every time a number jumps across that gap, I'll tell you. The dish is called isicia omentata. Isicia omentata. The recipe survives in Apicius. You take minced meat, beef works, pork's cheaper, so pork. You pound it together with white breadcrumbs soaked in wine. You work in pepper and a splash of garum, the fermented fish sauce that went on everything. You tuck a few pine nuts into the middle. Then you wrap the whole thing in caul fat, the thin lacy membrane from around a pig's guts, and you cook it. That caul fat isn't garnish, it's engineering. Lean minced meat cooks dry and sad. The caul melts as it heats and bastes the patty from the outside in. It's the Roman answer to the problem every burger cook still fights. A patty of pounded meat held together with soaked bread, seasoned and fatted and cooked on a hot surface. Call it what it is, it's a burger, so you can make one. The harder question is who buys it, and whether Rome even lets you make money doing this. Start with the fact that makes the whole business possible. Most Romans couldn't cook. Not couldn't, weren't allowed to, really. The poor and the working middle lived in insulae, apartment blocks stacked 5 and 6 floors high. Wood floors, no chimneys, no running water above the ground level. An open cooking fire in a timber building full of sleeping families was how you burned down a city block, and everyone knew it. So most apartments had no kitchen at all, which means dinner came from the street. If you were poor in Rome, you didn't own a stove. You rented your meals, hot, from a counter like the one you're about to open. It wasn't a treat, it was infrastructure, and the archaeology backs it up hard. In Pompeii, one mid-sized town, not even the capital, archaeologists have counted the remains of around 150 of these counters. They're called thermopolia, a stone bench facing the street, big clay jars called dole, sunk into the top to hold the day's food, a fire to keep it warm. One of them came out of the ground almost whole in 2020. Painted front, a rooster, a dog on a leash, a sea nymph. And inside the jars, the actual leftovers, duck, pig, goat, fish, snails, a real menu, frozen mid-service by a volcano. So the demand is real and the format is proven, a hungry city with no kitchens. That's your market. Now let's see what it costs you to feed them, because this is where the confidence starts to wobble. Every number from here runs in one currency, the denarius communis, the accounting money of Diocletian's price list, 301 AD. And I'm going to give you one ruler to measure all of it. A laborer, an unskilled man hired for the day, fed by his boss, was worth 25 denarii a day under that same law. A skilled man, a mason or a carpenter, 50. So hold that in your head. A day of a man's sweat is 25 denarii. That's the coin we're counting in. Now go shopping. The Edict fixed the ceiling on everything you need. Pork, 12 denarii for a Roman pound, about 1/3 of a kilo. Beef would have run you 8, cheaper, but pork's fattier and it holds together, so pork. Your patty takes maybe 1/3 of a pound of meat. Call it 4 denarii of pork in every burger. The bread and wine for the binder, scraps and a splash. Round it to a denarius. The garum, a spoonful. The good stuff was 16 denarii for half a liter. the second grade 12, and you're using a spoon, so under a denarius. Fine. Then you reach for the pepper, and the floor drops out. Pepper in the edict was 800 denarii for a single Roman pound. Do that math against the meat. Your pork costs about 37 denarii a kilo. Pepper costs roughly 2,400 a kilo. Gram for gram, the pepper is more than 60 times the price of the meat it's seasoning. A pinch, half a gram, is more than a denarius. Season it like a rich man's kitchen, and a fingernail of black dust costs you more than the pork under it. So your patty, seasoned with a light hand, costs you around 7 denarii in ingredients. Go heavy on pepper to taste like the cookbook wants, and the most expensive thing in the recipe is the one nobody can even see. But ingredients aren't the business. The business is the counter. And the counter has a mouth of its own to feed, whether you sell a single burger or not. You have to stand somewhere. A taberna, a ground floor shop opening onto the street, the good spots on a busy road, cost real money to rent. More than the airless garrets Romans slept in upstairs. And here I owe you honesty. I can't give you a clean rent figure in 301 denarii. The surviving rent numbers come from an earlier century and a different coinage, and dragging them across 300 years of Roman money being debased into confetti would be a lie dressed as a fact. So I'll model your rent as an assumption, not a quote. Roughly a laborer's daily wage per day, about 25 denarii. Then fuel. The fire under those pots doesn't burn air. Charcoal and wood every single day to keep the dole hot from dawn. Call it another 10 denarii a day, and labor. You could work the counter yourself, but your own day has a price too. The 25 denarii you'd earn doing anything else. Or you hire a man to mind the pots while you buy meat. Either way, that's 25 denarii a day walking out the door. Add it up before a single customer arrives. Rent, fuel, one pair of hands. Call it 60 denarii a day. Gone. That's your nut. 2.5 days of a laborer's wages spent every morning just to open the doors. 60 denarii a day, and you haven't sold one burger. So the whole game becomes a single number. How many do you have to move to dig out of that hole? And is there anyone left in Rome willing to pay? Because nobody warned you about this when you signed the lease. Your biggest competitor isn't the counter next door. It's the emperor, and he's giving food away for free. Rome fed its own poor, not as charity, as politics, as the price of not having a hungry mob tear the city apart. The system was called the annona. For centuries, the state handed out free grain to a fixed list of citizens. By the time of Caesar and Augustus, that list ran to around 200,000 men in the city of Rome. Then it got worse for you. In the 270s, the Emperor Aurelian stopped handing out raw grain and started handing out bread, baked, free. He even made the loaves bigger and organized the bakers into a guild to produce them. Around 200,000 loaves a day, given to the people at no charge. Look at what that does to your shop. A huge slice of your city wakes up every morning with free bread already in hand. You cannot sell bread to a man the government is giving bread to. The cheapest, most obvious thing a food stall could push, carbs to fill a belly, is worthless to you because the emperor undercut you to zero before you were born. So the free bread doesn't just take customers. It shoves you upmarket whether you like it or not. Your only play is the thing the dole doesn't cover, meat, something hot and fatty and seasoned that a free loaf can never be. The burger isn't a choice anymore. It's the only lane the state left open, which is the trap closing around you. The one product you're allowed to win with is built from the two most dangerous ingredients on your shelf: meat that spoils and pepper that costs more than silver. Now let's run the register and see if the math actually clears. Every morning, you're 60 denarii in the hole. Each burger costs you about 7 to make, so every burger has to earn back its own 7 and chip at that 60 on top. What can you charge? This is the honest wall of the whole experiment. The edict caps what you pay for ingredients, but no surviving source gives the retail price of a single cooked patty at a thermopolium counter. So the sale price is the one number I'm genuinely guessing, and it's the number the entire business hangs on. So let's guess like an operator, not a fantasist. A hot meat meal, real food, not a dole loaf, is a small luxury for a working man. Price it at 15 denarii, a bit over half a day's wage for a laborer. Enough to hurt, not enough to stop him. He buys it on payday, not every day. At 15 denarii I sold and 7 to make. Each burger clears about 8 denarii of margin. Now do the division. To cover the 60 denarii nut, you need to sell 8 burgers a day just to break even. 8 burgers to stand still. Burger number 9 is the first coin you actually keep, and a busy counter on a good street can move a lot more than 9. Say a decent day is 40 burgers. That's 320 denarii of margin, minus your 60 of fixed costs, around 260 denarii of profit. In a day, more than 10 times what the laborer at your counter earns for his. Sell 40 a day, 6 days a week, and in a month you clear more than 5 times what a skilled Roman craftsman takes home in the same month. So there's your answer. Yes, you can get rich selling burgers in ancient Rome. But look at how thin the ledge is that you're standing on. The profit is real, and it's fragile, and every one of the numbers that makes it work is a number that can turn on you. Sell only 9 burgers on a slow day, and you clear a few denarii. You basically worked for free. The margin lives entirely on volume, which means it lives entirely on your location, which means the difference between rich and ruined is whether your counter sits on a busy road or a dead one. Same recipe, same prices, same effort. 1 block over, you starve. Then there's the pepper, seasoned to please a Roman palate raised on Apicius, and that 800 denarii a pound dust eats your margin 1 pinch at a time. The dish that survives in the cookbook is a rich man's dish. The dish that makes you money is a poorer, plainer thing, light on the pepper, heavy on the soaked bread stretching the meat. To profit, you don't cook the famous recipe, you cook a cheaper ghost of it, and behind all of it stands the emperor with his free bread, holding the floor of the entire market down, making sure the easy money, cheap carbs to a hungry city, is a business that can never exist. He shoved you into meat, and meat is exactly where a spoiled batch of pork on a hot day wipes out a week of profit in an afternoon. So the real answer isn't a number, it's a shape. Selling burgers in ancient Rome is a thin margin, high volume, location is everything grind, running on the one product, a welfare state left uncovered, seasoned by the most overpriced spice on earth. Get all of it right and you out-earn a craftsman 10 to 1. Get the street wrong, or the pepper heavy, or the meat old, and you're back working someone else's counter for 25 denarii a day. A hungry city with no kitchens will always pay a man to cook. The Romans knew it. They just made sure he had to fight the emperor for the privilege. If you'd run this stall, free bread across the street and all, subscribe and I'll hand you the next impossible Roman business plan.